Call to order the Planning Commission regular session at Charles Civic Center, 500 Caswell, July 2nd. Roll call.
Grossman present.
Strube present.
Saddleback present. D'Amico present. President.
Let it be shown that we have a quorum. All rise for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Under the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. So before we get into this, two real quick announcements. Happy birthday to Tracy, our devoted support.
Happy.
Happy. That's the cake that she has down there. And I'd also like to welcome our newest commissioner, Jim Powell. All right. Do we have any public comments?
We do not, for any record.
All right, thank you. Consent agenda. Do I have approval of the agenda format?
I just, one quick question here from the last meeting there. It said in the minutes, you know, that it was unfinished and we were going to complete it here. And just, you know, it says here, unfinished business none, and it's shown in under the new business. Is that okay? Is that done deliberately?
It is, yeah. We discussed it.
Okay.
It's kind of both because we're continuing to
Yeah.
get through.
Yeah, okay. All
Yeah.
right, just, all right.
That was a notice on my part.
Okay. Yeah, that was all, yeah.
Now, agenda-wise, you have an item to be added?
That item is going to be, if you notice that item, it says 7A, so it's going to be under other
Okay,
business.
so this is now downloaded, because I just downloaded this.
Oh,
It is not, it's just going to be, we could not get the ad in time, so this is
All right,
just
so
under
we
other
need to
business.
verbalize it.
motion to put it in there.
for the
All right.
sake- I don't have it.
That's right.
It's right there.
Yeah, I have it here, but I don't have it here on this agenda.
So the idea would be to include it in the minutes.
It'll be included in the minutes, but, okay, we can put it, it'll be item 7A,
Okay.
Historic District Review Board,
Okay, good.
right?
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? How about the approval of the minutes from June? Any comments? Corrections?
I move that we accept the June 4th meeting minutes as presented.
Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Reports. So the June monthly report talks about the Historic District Review Board, the Harbor Area Review Board, Board of Zoning Appeals, wetlands, items of interest, Harbor Working Group, and the Southern Tip Bike Trail. The items of interest, the Harbor Working Group, I'll just say this right now. The mayor has been apprised of, we're basically finished, and has been apprised of what has transpired in a high-level sense, and there will be an information paper provided to the town council at their next meeting, which is 2 weeks from Thursday. And it's an informational paper. Okay.
And it's potential to be on the next month's agenda, but not for sure.
They will have the action. Okay.
And as far as the bike trail goes, I appreciate, addressing that. It shows now, because at one time we were talking about the terminus, here is what is now reflected. It comes down under the hump and into the parking lot of the town piers. The paved parking lot is where it comes out. And I guess if we have our community trail, the community trail will parallel it for a short distance and then have to run over top of it in order to continue on around the curve of Marina Road.
So I can provide another update. We met on this today
Good.
with VDOT and with the designer, the engineering firm that's doing the work. And the initial meeting from what you have in your packet was informational. They wanted comments, they wanted discussion, and we gave them some ideas to incorporate into the design, and they've done that. A couple of them being just a connection, a five-foot sidewalk connection from the corner of Mason and Fig to the trail, so there's access there. And then another one is that the trail continues down, not just to that terminus that's shown here, but all the way to the shanty boardwalk, the area on the right side of the shanty when you're looking at the front, to kind of connect all those trails together. So those are just two major changes. But other than that, that should be about what the trail looks like.
All right, thank you. Anything else under reports? Okay, we have no unfinished business. New business. Item 6A, comp plan. All right. When we left this off last month, I had mentioned looking at the City of Lexington's comprehensive plan webpage, and that's not Mount Jefferson, it's Mount Jackson, their comp plan. We have now got a kickoff workshop scheduled for July 25th here in this Civic Center. I sent an email to all the chairs of all the boards and asked them, hopefully they'll invite their boards to come. You have in front of you a proposed agenda for that workshop. Larry, the town manager, will be there. I'm not sure about the AMPDC. Initially, I was told that the 25th was okay with her. Now, it's questionable. But regardless if she can't make it or not, we only have her for 7 hours for the whole company. Oh my goodness.
Really?
Or 7 meetings.
Five total meetings, I believe.
5 meetings. Okay. 5 meetings. Okay, so we will have to decide how to best use her. So anyway, and then there'll be a brief introduction to the comp plan requirements and the use of the plan, and we'll have our town planner do that. And I'm taking this off of Lexington's first, basically, and then they broke up into groups to discuss those 5 things. What's the best way to engage Cape Charles citizen stakeholders? For example, more workshops, online surveys, stakeholder meetings, small group forums, or other ideas. Who are the critical players, the stakeholders who need to be engaged in the process? If the comprehensive plan process includes a community opinion survey, what topics or questions should be included? List the top 3 issues you would like to see the comp plan address. What major products should be included in the plan? And then the groups will report out, and we would kind of put up a comprehensive plan schedule following what we discussed last time. We need to formalize that. and then closing. Hopefully we could do this all in about 2 hours, right?
What
This
time?
is a draft. This is July 25th, 6 to 8 p.m. here.
Hey, Bill, as I looked at the group exercises, I think to make sure that this goes well and we get good results from it, I think we probably need each one of the areas to have some kind of a facilitator.
That's
That's almost a given.
yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good
Truly
idea.
will get a lot better results.
And I think we can go out internally with the boards and commissions that we have, and we can probably get people to head these up. All right, but you're right. Because we're going to be doing that in here. I was a little, it missed going in on the special gazette that went out, the date, but we need to get this, we need to publicize this. We need to have interested people show up for this. So we need to hit Facebook, our Facebook page,
Happenings.
the happenings, another gazette, Main Street, we'll put it out. Main Street is one of the big stakeholders. So
Would this be visible to people outside? If I can't attend, will I see this agenda and would I have an opportunity to submit written
absolutely,
inputs?
absolutely. We want to make this as seamless as
All right, so
possible.
we need to be able to publish the agenda or questions and saying, if you cannot attend the workshop, feel free to submit.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good points. And you know, we got to have. I don't know how we want to handle this, but I would invite the town to invite John Coker to attend. That needs to be done soon. Whether Larry wants to invite him or Smitty or whatever, but we need to have him come because this is a partnership too with them. All right.
Just one thing is I read over what we were supposed to look at compared to who we are as a town in terms of size and boards and things that we have. Just, you know, if that day comes and the people have spread the word among the boards and everything, and 50 people show up from these boards and things like that, and we say, oh, nobody from the public's here, this has been a disaster, you know, please recognize that there are a lot of people who care, that are engaged in these things, and hopefully will be here for all of that. We don't have to make a hard separation between that and the so-called rest of the town, that's all.
Well, I hear you, and we'll go back to our last
Yeah.
review of the comp plan when nobody showed up.
Well, that was, in other words,
I mean, we
don't get all wrapped around the axle over somebody showing up. And with that, we spent so much time in meetings that nobody showed up at. But this time around, it's so much different. We've got a lot of people working on these.
Let's hope.
So I'm just saying,
We gotta get the word out, okay? And again, Lexington had a thing, and it's pretty good on their website on how they advertise that. So,
They've got 7,000 in the university. That's
so
lots
you
of-
may want to take a look at that in case.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. But that's a good thing, you know, we'll all have to be involved in this one way or another, and, you know, my next thing is to pass out to, I did it kind of on the back of an envelope the last time on the phases, 1, 2, and 3, but let me flush some more meat on that and put that out and get that out, so I'll have that out before the 25th for everybody. So we can have that, because it's going to be part of the thing. I'll get it to everybody, all right? But just as an aside, we said phase 1 would be like from July to February. Phase 2, that's background and vision. Phase 2, which is plan development, would go from March to October. And then phase 3, which is the documentation and the adoption, would go from November February of '21. Okay. All right. So, please, if anybody has any better, or we can, anything, if we get John Coker here, maybe we could have him say something too. But we can do that. That's off the top of my head on what I got, and I can make some changes based on what's been said already. So. Any other comments on the topic? All right. Next item is proposed text amendment to town zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.5, and Section 4.6, subsections A through F review. I think you have a full packet. That was handed. No, I'm sorry, you don't. All right.
All right.
Mr. Planner.
Thanks. So we're making tons of progress. So Jim, I know you're new, so I'll just go through. We're doing A through F right now. And there's, I think, G through, there's all the way through O, I think. So just kind of split it up. We've been working on this for a few months now. The review procedure, review each subsection in order, discuss the regulations, form a consensus on any recommended changes, then proceed to the next regulation. If a consensus can't be reached, then we can table it for further discussion, which we've done on multiple cases. And then review definitions as they come up for each subsection. So that's kind of that little star is proposed definition for the word on the following slide. Red is in text in red, proposed definitions and changes made by staff, and then in green, PC recommended changes from the last meeting that has already been had consensus on. So I'm going to go through from the last meeting. We'll just start on the staff report. So 4.5.8.5, we've had a lot of discussion on this, and I left it off as somehow believing that this was only commercial. I don't know where I got that. I couldn't find where I got that, so I just added it in this by saying no non-single family detached residential parking. So that would make this section be specifically related to commercial rather than, you know, someone changing their oil in their driveway or their battery.
Yeah, I like this, the way it's.
And if someone were to be running a small car repair business out of their single-family home, how would we handle that?
So that would be through the home occupation regulations. So they would have to get a business license. We could shut them down for doing that. And they obviously would not be allowed to do that, so we wouldn't give them a business license. So any questions or?
Nope, that's good.
All right. So these were some changes we talked about last time, changing from 100 to 110%, adding B where between 100 and 110%, developers would be required to use grasscrete or grass pave, some sort of pervious paving system that they would submit, and I would approve it as the zoning administrator when they submit. That's for like excess over the 100% allowed parking.
I liked that grass crate. I wish we could deal with someone that they would do it if they got something in exchange for their entire
yeah.
parking lot, because
Yeah.
it is for daily parking lot, which I was surprised.
Yeah, that's something to think about, like maybe some incentives to use pervious.
Yeah, because really, so if they have 5 extra spots and they put it in grass crate, what's the difference? But if we could do more.
All right. Any other questions or comments on that? requirements table. We added these two definitions last time and just changed them up a little bit, and they're in your staff report on the last page, all the definitions that we've gone through. The extended stay motel and hotel, Diane had a question about, because it says any building containing 6 or more. So I'd be like, okay, well, what about the ones that are less? So this definition would require extended stay hotels and motels to be at least 6. So anything less than 6 would not be allowed per zoning. You'd have to at least meet that 6, you know. So that's the extent of that definition. I don't think we're, yeah, I mean, we might actually get that stuff. Extended stay, which would be an extended stay, as you can tell in this, but it actually has like a kitchen or some sort of, it's meant to be longer than just a day, a night or 2. So everyone good with that? All right. There's 2 definitions that I just saw in here that weren't added when they were supposed to be. So these are new ones. So guest room is an important definition to add, and so I threw that in there. If y'all have any changes with that.
Okay.
Alright. I added accessory dwelling units, 1 space per bedroom. We had consensus on that. Any other questions or anything?
That one still bothers me. But if it's okay with everyone else, we'll give it a go.
And is it okay with everyone else? Should I continue or?
Okay, that's fine.
I added this, so it was sales and rental of goods, and then Dennis had a question about, you know, well, extended stay hotels and motels are under this, so I added living space and goods, just to kind of make sure that that falls under that kind of thing. Good. All right, event center, we discussed that, and we all were in agreement on that. Definition. So this was the question of mimicking the one below. So let's see. So we wanted to mimic subdivision recreation area, number 8 on the table permitted, or table of parking regulation. That's cool. And so I adjusted it to fit number 5, and this is kind of what I came up with. It's essentially the same thing.
So, Zach, on that instance, our park is how many square feet? Is it 2 acres?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 2 acres.
So what does that equate to in terms of the number of parking spaces that are required
So it would be,
for this acreage? You know?
so you take the square feet, you take the acreage, you know, convert it to square feet, and then do 1 space per 200 square feet.
Okay.
So it would be a lot of spaces
It's-
for 2.
You know, we're not gonna record back to Central Park, but this is new.
Yeah, well, this would be something like in the harbor area, if someone were to build a facility like that, or a park that's 2 acres,
Right.
that would be
Got it.
So if someone was going to build a park, we're not talking about government parks owned
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the town. Okay.
it would be, and that would be kind of I mean, that would very much be a discussion between planning commission and town council once that park is being built as to how many parking spaces we need and things like that, so.
Yeah, because if we say it's the minimum, then discussion allows you to do less.
Well, for a government, like a government built park, we would just discuss that internally. It wouldn't be up for, like, it would be a discussion like this, but it wouldn't be like, oh, we have to meet this minimum. We got, well, this is the minimum we have, does that meet this need? But for someone who was to build a private park, then they would have to meet this minimum requirement. Otherwise, they would have to pursue variance from the parking regulations. So it would be like if if Central Park was coming today, it'd be 2 acres for the actual field, and then you have, you know, maybe, you have your playgrounds, that would, you know, that would also be, that square footage, would be one space per 200. So you take all of the combined, what's being developed.
So how many parking spaces would that be?
I can calculate it.
Yeah. Okay.
But given the fact that the town would own
No,
it,
no, I don't want, I just want to say,
Right.
what if a private person
yes,
Yeah.
came in and did Central Park, how many parking spaces?
All right, let's see. 43,560 square feet. So. 87. That's a ton. For a 2-acre park, 403, yeah, so that does
Right.
not.
No, that sounds about right.
435 parking spaces.
Yes.
For what we have for.
Think about the park though,
Uh,
the size of it. And when we have a big event, there could easily be 450 to 500 people there.
But that wouldn't necessarily be vehicles.
Vehicles and or golf carts.
A lot of people come
And some walk.
walk, but some have 2 people to a vehicle.
Well, I have to,
Come here Saturday night, and there'll be at least that. There'll be that many people there.
but now we're talking about a parking lot, a paved parking lot.
Big lot, that's like a Walmart parking lot.
But going back to what you said, the park is grandfathered. This is a new park. It would be established
Yeah.
to establish the park before that.
Like
I understand, but I'm trying to get a feel for
Yeah.
how many spaces it would be, and it seems like that's a ridiculous
It
amount of
is.
spaces for that.
Another thing to
That
consider
size.
is we really want people to go to the park, like walk and ride to the park, etc. So we're pursuing that as well.
I'm not sure we ought to go with this until we have a better feel for it.
But that's,
all right, so we're gonna put this on hold.
Yeah.
Okay.
but that also is for subdivision recreation area. We have pretty much that exact requirement.
I'm sorry, are these in the handout somewhere?
There.
Sorry, I'm
in the
trying to
agenda
follow
packet,
along.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the agenda and I can't find them.
They're in the staff report.
Okay, sorry.
This is a rehash of what we've done to date. So we haven't gotten into what's in the agenda yet.
They're different here, but like this is what he's put.
I know, but I don't see it.
So I think we should revisit 5 and 8, because 8 is exactly like 5 for a subdivision recreation area, so that's what that. So, is that okay if we revisit both of those? I'll come up with some new
Yeah.
regulations for it.
Okay.
All right, so. These were ones that we came up with. We edited them a little bit, public and private definitions. Again, they're in your staff report at the very end. Temporary structures, we came to a consensus that we wanted to regulate this on a case-by-case basis rather than it just being 0. More than likely, there'll be, on more than most occasions, it'll be 0, but just to give that flexibility to staff.
Does town code need to play into this? As in terms of a permanent versus temporary structure?
That should, well, we have definitions for those in the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be really use that ordinance. Any questions on that? Are y'all lost? Y'all need?
No.
Okay, okay. All right, so this is where we left off.
I know, but I don't see it.
So we are on shared parking. I'm recommending we revisit this until the end.
Good idea.
because it's gonna be a pretty big discussion, and just kind of maybe see where we are with the other ones. So, we'll move on to bicycle, if that's okay, is that,
Well, let's discuss and see how long it goes. I don't think there will be. You know, in researching this, the question that was presented here was a single method on shared parking and having an agreement between two entities that went into perpetuity and started getting wrapped. I think what I've seen is there are examples of this use in other places, so this is not foreign to its use. However, there are other applications that take into time and land use into account, which means there's other methodologies out there that are available to people in order to say, okay, there's a church there, and it's only used from 7 till noon on Sundays, or Wednesday nights, or whatever, but that it's next to a restaurant that opens up Monday through Saturday, you know, and looking at the combination of those two areas, that timing-wise, there's enough parking spots in order to address the needs. The way they approach it in this methodology is, if you calculate parking on individual usage basis, you'll come up with a number. However, if you look at on time and land use, it's a much less number than what you would come up individually with these. So I think there's wording that can be added. This shared use that's presented right now, I think is fine. But I think there's additional wording that we can insert in a generalized fashion that, in accordance with the, let's see, I had seen the Urban Land Institute shared parking, or the Institute of Traffic Engineers parking, shared parking. There's methodologies out there that I think we can say, as an alternate, the applicant come in with its report that demonstrates how it is addressing parking for its particular establishment. And just leave it at that. You know, in accordance with the methodology as prescribed in either this or that. There's a couple standard things there. I don't think that the common layperson can pick up those standards very easily. You have to have somebody that's familiar with land development and the use of that methodology and say, okay, I'm going to put it in this fashion, in this table, and actually do a study by day and time in order to come up with what they have. But I leave that open as an alternative methodology to what we have here as currently written.
Well, I think that's why we need to put it off, because we need to look into this.
Well, what I offer
Fully
is, let me work with Zach to come up with proposed wording in that kind of fashion. You know, it's not going to be anything, some might have seen, it's all written out in great detail as to, you know, the city of Antonia. This is how they address it, and it's, you know, 10 pages worth of methodology. All I want to do is add on to what we have as an alternative. The applicant can put a shared plan together in accordance with X. So I'll just say I'll work with Zach for a proposal next time.
And if you're gonna work with Zach, could you please work on in perpetuity? That really bothers
Okay,
me.
no, that,
I don't
okay,
like that
okay.
at all.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
alright.
Thank you.
Alright, bicycle parking. So, I'll just leave that up there for y'all reading, we can discuss 1 and 2 if you have any questions on that. So again, the staff report does kind of explain D1, D2, and what they're supposed to stand for. So D1 essentially is saying the zoning districts listed include all districts that are not primarily single family. So it wouldn't obviously make a single family detached home have to put bicycle parking up, you know, but if it was like a multifamily, like a
Duplex?
well, not necessarily a duplex either, unless it falls within the, I mean, if it falls within the R3 CR those districts, then it would need to provide more bicycle parking.
No, I don't think that makes sense. Why would you have to provide bicycle parking for a unit that has 2 dwelling units?
Well, I had the same comment with H, which is the harbor, knowing that we're changing, but right now with mixed use, I can understand how it fits, but I would say as we go to allowing single-family residents in there, I would exclude the requirement for bicycle parking.
So we can add,
But isn't a single-family resident a single?
But I'm saying I agree with you, and just I'm looking at H. So I think we need to exclude,
single, we need, okay. I'll come up with wording on D1, we could say all developments in blah, 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 other than, we could say something like, I don't know, I mean, we have to be specific here, because single-family dwelling also includes condos, and do we want to have condos?
That's what I'm saying. To me, a single-family development is a single home with a family in it. Then, because otherwise we're going into more definitions. Oh, well, we're gonna have a duplex. Well, that's 2 families living in a dwelling.
Mhm.
So I think we need to decide where we're going with it, and the fact that it says developments, what does that mean? If somebody comes in and wants to put in a subdivision?
Well, it's just like developments within these districts. You could say a development within this district. I mean, it's just the way that, yeah.
So if you did decide they had to put in bicycle racks for a duplex, if somebody built a duplex
Yeah,
on an empty lot,
No, I agree with you. I don't think they should have that. I don't think that they should be required to put, because that's for their personal use, but I'm thinking like, if you think about a condominium or something like that, where there's multiple people living under one roof, if they're just throwing their bikes out in the, the common area or whatever, they have to store it in their house, to have the ability to lock it up is good.
how about you take the S off developments?
Okay. And then somehow specify.
So we read any development, is that what you want to say?
Well, if you say development,
In all. Development within all. It makes sense. Either way, I think it makes sense, but I understand what you're saying.
what's the point? Where are we trying to get bicycles? Parking for bicycles?
Everywhere other than what you were mentioning, where people live, there's maybe a couple of people under one roof, either that's a duplex or a quadplex even, but anything above that, I think would be good to have, would have bicycle parking. Would be good to have bicycle parking.
Like there's one in Patrick Ann's Park.
Right.
Okay. It's not put in right, but
Yeah. I think you've been very kind.
Hence the,
The
Yeah,
photos.
The upper limit of 20 isn't trying to discourage people from biking rather than taking an automobile.
we're trying to encourage people to bike rather than take it
So
on.
we're setting a limit. You just, I know it's,
We're setting a minimum.
yeah, and I guess 20 is pretty generous.
20, yeah, for every 20 automobile parking spaces, but then in 2 it says, other than single-family residential shall have none shall have fewer than 3 parking spaces. So you have to at least have 3. So if you think about on Mason Avenue, if we were to have all these people at least have 3 parking spaces, but then again, we'll continue on. It's within a specific distance of another place that already has bicycle parking. That would be, we'll discuss that, but
Okay,
I'm just saying, like, it allows for, it encourages people to bike to these locations.
good.
Because if there's no place to put my bike, I'll put it on a tree, and that's not really what we want, or I won't bike.
So, right now, there is there's 2 units above Brown Dog, between Brown Dog and what is that? No, the real estate.
Oh, yeah,
There's two apartments upstairs. So that would fit into this, have to have three bicycle racks out there.
But you gotta think, that's also, it's not just for the people that are living up there, it's for the people that go to ground on, or people that are inquiring about real estate
That's, see, this is a lot hard.
But you know, the question is where does that go?
well, it's specified in here as to where it's supposed to go.
So but you're saying every single store along Mason needs bicycle parking?
So, bicycle parking shall be within 20 feet of the front entrance of the primary structure or approved by the zoning administrator if that doesn't work. Not interfere with pedestrian access along sidewalks or walkways. And then if we keep going, I could have sworn there was something. I thought it had specified that if it was within 500 feet of another rack, that it didn't have to be, but.
I think that could get quite messy. Why couldn't we do something where it becomes an aggregate? Here's the spot where we would put 10 bikes.
Well, I think that's your 500, right?
And by
There's another clause that somehow isn't.
Yeah, I might have taken it out because I thought further on. But if you think about that specific situation, are you gonna make, where's it gonna be? So if Patrick Canfield,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well now you have to put in 10. He's like, no, I'm gonna put in 10. Why would I have to do that when I
Exactly.
could have done it, you know?
In which case, maybe the town needs to put them in and have people buy them, buy the
So-
spaces.
The goal in my mind is we don't want the town to have to pay for these types of things that developers should readily, they should be able to do it. I mean, that's like, what, $300 to put in a club iCrack or something in a multi-million-dollar development that they're doing. Whether that be, think about like Parsons Building, he's gonna be making tons of money off of all that building. And I think he would gladly put in 3 bicycle parking spaces and not blink an eye at it if it was a requirement.
Oh, I don't think it would either, but, okay, so we have an empty store. If a new store moves in, do they have to provide bike?
This would be actual development.
Yeah.
This wouldn't just be a change of use.
So this is a new building, so if they put a new building where the empty space is right now, then they would have to put in bicycle parking. So how is
Well, it's
that?
the Parsons building too. It's an existing building, and he's saying with the development or repurposing, that will require now, if this was in place.
So if we take an existing building and totally redo it, totally, from bottom to top?
Well, it's development, so then you look at, okay, well, what is development? You go to your definition and say, okay, development is this. That's why we have to define everything, because
Yeah, do
someone
we have a
might do if
definition
you
for
were.
development?
We should have a definition
Let's see.
of development if we haven't gotten to that yet. It doesn't look like we've done development, so.
So we definitely need to do that. And as much stuff is on our sidewalks right now, I think we have to be real careful about adding more.
Well, if you think, yeah, I agree, but also think about the places where there is no development, i.e. the harbor area.
No,
That's like
that was
fresh.
true.
And this is, all that we're going through is essentially for, I mean, it's gonna be for those locations. You know, really the historic district is built up, other than the tabby lot or whatever it's called. That lot is pretty empty, and then there's a few other ones, so it's not gonna really affect it too much within that area unless.
Would the Parsons building have been affected by this?
So development is currently defined as division of the parcel of land into 2 or more parcels, construction, reconstruction, conversion, structural alteration, etc. of any structure, so yes.
So the folks that came in here, the old Impact Fitness building, that would qualify too. Just like that, what is it, 718 Randolph? Is that it?
Yeah.
They're doing three,
Seven.
three townhouses, if you will, there,
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah.
Right.
I think then maybe can we put this off and read it again?
Well, what specific items do you want me to kind of?
I want to make sure that we understand the definition of development, exactly how it's going to be applied, not how we think it's going to be applied, but how would it have to be applied.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes we think we're doing something right, but really, so those are the things I want to think about. Because we also are looking at the railroad property as smaller businesses with residential above, right? We're kind of thinking in those terms. So
At least,
again,
yeah, at least along Mason.
okay, so again, those are going to be smallish spaces. So when you develop that, how many parking spaces do you need?
That's, yeah, and then you would go to, so say you're developing that, and you have a mixed-use building along
Mhm.
Mason Avenue. Then we go to, well, what is the requirement for a mixed-use building in our table that we've already discussed, and that would be, I think, it depends on the square footage of you know, what the, I understand that this is it's complicated, but to me, it's like, to me and whoever else is administering it, it's way less complicated than I'm making out to be. But I understand, I understand your concerns, but I know it's complicated, but, okay, so mixed use development, 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. So if they have 4 dwelling units above their thing, and then 1 space per 200 square feet of commercial gross floor area. So I would calculate that and say, hey, you need 10 parking spaces, right? So then they'd have 10 parking spaces, and then this would also come into play where, okay, well, you have 10 parking spaces, you need 1 for every 20, but at least 3, so you have 3 bike racks that you have to put in. And the way that you would put it in would be ideally within 20 feet of the front entrance of the primary structure, or as approved by the zoning administrator. So if they can't do that, if that doesn't make sense, if it's going to block the sidewalk, maybe it could be where Patrick Hand put his, you know, where it's in between the building and the parking, something like that, you know, which probably is within 20 feet of the primary entrance. And just to make sure that it's not interfering with sidewalks or walkways. The type of frame would be something similar to the one on the left. So the one on the right is what Patrick Hand uses. So they talk about, and that's not, I'm not dogging Patrick Hand, I'm just saying that's an example within the town. This is kind of what tends to happen because it mentions, I know it's really tiny, but it talks about 2 points of contact for where you need to, ideally a biker would want to have 2 points of contact to keep it as secure as possible. So bicycle parking provided inverted U-frame, steel frame or decorative rack that provides 2 points of contact for the bike frame and is approved by the zoning administrator. So they would give me, hey, this is what I want to do. Yeah, that works perfectly. Show me on the site plan where it's going to be. Boom, that's a perfect spot. You have 3, you're good to go. And they need to be permanent instead of like a temporary one that you just kind of put out there and it can be moved and shifted as desired, and anchored to a concrete pad so that you wouldn't have something like this situation where it's in the grass and it's just not as appealing and really.
Where it says located within 20 feet of the front entrance, you have a lot of say in this, so why put 20 feet in there? Why don't we leave it up to you, the zoning administrator, to decide where the bicycle parking is?
We could.
Because you would not be able to say, oh, you don't have to do that, if we put it in there within 20 feet, right?
Yeah, it would have to be within 20 feet
Right.
or as approved.
Or
So
it's
yes,
approved,
I
so
would be able to.
it's already there.
Mhm.
So if you're suggesting take out the 20-foot, the second clause is there already.
However, I do think that it's important with change of staff, change of, commissioners, et cetera, like to have at least an idea of where you guys would want it, rather than just leaving it up to interpretation, because that's, we really want to make sure I don't know, you don't want to leave everything up to interpretation.
Well, I think you can just put an intent in there rather than a specific amount of feet.
Well, let's just take the Parsons building, for example.
Yeah.
So if it's going to have a minimum of 3 spaces. And if you look at the sidewalk there and how crowded it is, it just doesn't make sense to have it on the front. Now, in the back, it'd work, you know, and they're going to have an entryway in the back as well.
Yeah, and that would be primarily for the residents rather than, however.
I know what you're saying, hey, but he's going to have 3 storefronts there.
So if you actually look at the Parsons building now, outside on the streetscape, there is a bike rack. There's already a temporary bike rack that was placed there, I think maybe by Southern Expeditions.
Where is it?
It's just in front of the
So
left
that's what
storefront.
the building-
And so if you really, I mean, there's definitely a room in between to where you'd have more than a 4-foot sidewalk to put it on his property right in front of the, yeah, it might reduce the ability for a tenant to put out some merchandise and stuff.
Well, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about a Saturday afternoon and somebody's trying to get a bike in or out of the traffic flow.
Yeah,
That's where I'm coming from.
Doesn't the hotel also have bike rack?
what'd you say?
The hotel, picture of it?
I'm not sure, but it might,
If we
but that makes
don't,
sense, that's a good thought.
if we don't require that parking spaces be located in the front entrance of a business, why are we requiring bicycle spaces be located in the front entrance? I mean, as long as there's reasonable spaces to park your bike.
Yeah, so, again, we want to cater towards, we want to make it as appealing as possible for people to walk and bike and not drive their cars and park. Specifically, people that are maybe visiting or living in town, you know. I don't know, I just, if you put it where Patrick Hands are located on the side of his building, that is definitely for residents. It could be for someone who's borrowing it, but it's definitely for residents. And this is not intended for residents, it's intended for people who are going to places that aren't single-family residents, you know, places that might be a mixed use or a commercial storefront or something like that, like a Rayfields.
Well, why wouldn't we put some parking in Strawberry Plaza? Because most of us, when we go downtown to park, we realize we're rarely going to park right in front of where we're going.
Yeah,
And a lot of us are using the new town gravel lot, which definitely isn't where we're going.
so
Couldn't
that's
we
a great
provide
idea.
bicycle parking
I
there?
think that's a great idea, a great use of that space. However, I also would caution that because then if you don't have something that requires bicycle parking, no one's going to put in bicycle parking. If you don't require it, no one's going to do it. Unless, I mean, they could do it, but more than likely no one's going to do it. So,
Well, I think bicycle parking should be for buildings like the Patrick Hand building for the residents.
yeah, I mean,
That's what I think bicycle parking would be for, not necessarily for the stores. And if you would provide it somewhere centrally, then people who wanted to bike downtown could.
I'm actually having a problem with the front entrance issue. I think it needs to be within proximity. Okay? Because there are going to be some businesses that don't physically have the space in front of the building businesses to put a bike rack. It'll be too tight, even if it is the 500-foot space limit, okay? So the proximity thing then gives them an option that if they want to place it at the back of the store, the side of the store, the front of the store, whatever, it gives them that option. That sort of implies they have to put it in the front.
well, that would be the, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, that would be the desire, is to put it where people see it. They're biking, they're saying, oh, hey, here's a place that I can put my bike and walk around and shop, etc., and then grab it and go. it's in the rear of the building or the side of the building where Patrick Hands are located, people aren't gonna seek that out and park their bikes there unless they know it's there already. I think in the reasoning for this, the intent is for people to park their bikes in front of a store so that they can visit it. Just like people want to park their cars in front of a store so that they can go visit it. And I totally understand the whole not having room, and that's the way that this town has been built. But the new areas, it's going to be different, and that's why this clause here that says, or is approved by the zoning administrator. I'm not going to say, hey, block this area.
But it goes hand in hand, okay? So, first of all, we can't even have a complete street because we don't have the width. So, you don't have a bike lane. And so, you're taking so I just really don't, I just can't imagine people coming to Cape Charles and taking their bike to go to the stores. I just can't. I really can't. Golf carts, that's different. But bikes, and they park it in one store, and then, well, like Jim said here, why not have a central location where you can park your bike? Because you're going to be walking. I mean, it's a small area, and so I just.
Yeah.
Now, they don't.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It might be different when the harbors starts to be developed, but again, we don't know what's gonna transpire down there.
Yeah.
And at this point, whatever we put in here applies to both places, right? The harbor and the town. But depending upon what we do with the harbor with the zoning, it could have its very own bicycle requirements.
We could, yeah.
So we have to make sure this works with the downtown. And we have to appreciate with the Parsons building that other buildings are going to be developed like that. So.
We can take, I mean, again, this is why it's up for debate. We can definitely take bicycle parking out. So
I just look at our stores, the same frontage up as the Parsons. I can't imagine how we could get a bicycle.
Or the hardware store gets repurposed, developed, often smoked. It's very tight too, with tree and planters.
Right.
And I would say if you're going to have residential development in some of these locations, and you have access in the back, that would be the place to put your bicycle parking for your residents, as opposed to the front.
Well, do you want to exclude then a section and really say this is perfect to Mason undeveloped area, or like?
Actually, I think Diane's idea is maybe spot on, because Mason Avenue, the business district is not very big to begin with, period. So maybe a common area, because it's very walkable for anybody that's riding a bike, any business. So maybe a common area that has maybe 12 or 18 bicycle spaces might be adequate to then cover everything that's needed.
yeah, and I completely agree with that.
I
think
agree.
that's a great
I do
idea.
too.
I just want to emphasize that's the town paying X amount of money for those bike racks rather than.
I understand that, but you see, I mean, that's, hey,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something that makes complete sense on Mason Avenue. I would agree with that.
If things went right, we have that parking lot in the back, and we get that, that might be a good area, right near where
Yeah.
Strawberry Plaza is back. So,
So excluding Mason Avenue, just like what Paul was talking about, could we exclude an area, or do you guys just want to scratch bicycle parking altogether? Requirements for bicycle parking altogether?
well, I think that, like the used steel frame, the concrete pad, I think that's good stuff, okay? And,
Yeah, designated.
yeah, but
So
I
you're
just
saying, like if someone were to choose to do,
Do
it's
it.
up to them if they want to, but these are the requirements
right,
if you do want to.
yes, yes.
So, yeah, I think, I like that, but I think that it might deter people from doing it, because then it's like, okay, well, I have to put a more expensive bike rack than what I was planning on. And I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it could be deterrent to put biking in if you put, if it's an option, but then there's also requirements on top of it, you know. But yeah, I'm okay with whatever you guys want to do.
Do we want to set this aside and come back to this after, I mean, what do we want to do with the bicycle?
I'd look to see what exclusion we would want to take. I don't mind this presenting out into the railroad area and the like, but I think we're homing in on Mason and perhaps excluding from point A to point B. You know, I'm thinking some of the new businesses beyond Fay.
Well,
If
you know,
somebody
we
puts something
get
in
the bike
there.
trail in here too, people could, you know, I mean, down like in Townsend, you know, they could say, well, let's bike over to Cape Charles and then we could park our bikes somewhere, you
In
know.
which case we ought to have bicycle parking along the trail. That should be part of the trail.
Yeah, but it's not, it's because I've been like a big advocate for that, and like furniture, you know, I like benches and things like that, and I said it's really not in the scope of their work, in their, you know, they're designing the trail, they're laying the concrete, et cetera, grading, but they're not, so, but yeah, I
They're not
definitely.
furnishing.
They're not furnishing
Well, then,
per se.
perhaps anymore, because if you go to phase one, they have seats.
Yeah,
They have different
and maybe they will.
instructors, but the second phase is all blank of that.
Yeah, maybe they will, I don't know. Yeah.
Phase one, yeah, at the end, and then the other end is the natural wildlife.
So Patrick Hand didn't, there wasn't a, nobody said that he was required to have that.
Yeah, that's true, and you put it in.
After
For
bikes
his,
started piling
for his
up.
residents.
Well, yeah,
Took for his residents.
Yeah.
well, we could exclude Mason Avenue.
Yeah, I'd opt to go that way.
And then at the harbor,
What is the harbor going to be zoned?
It's still a harbor, it's gonna be,
But I mean, are we looking to make it more like a planned unit development area?
Yes, that's what I was saying earlier, is that it's gone to the mayor, who will now present it to council.
If it's a planned unit development area, it can have its own bicycle parking requirements.
Correct. If it
So-
goes that route, but there's other options for that area too.
No, true. But I don't, you want to just say no Mason?
well, I think we should also try to make the town put in like a common area for some bicycles. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, in addition to it, you know.
Well, you got it in the corner by the library, right?
Yeah.
Down, put a rack there,
Right.
people park their bikes and go to the library.
Right.
alright, so I have,
We beat this dead horse. Enough.
I have for D1, make it to where it's not single family residences, you know, trying to figure that out. And then possibility of restricting it to a specific area, or not making a specific area.
Common area, somewhere, yeah.
Be something like where bicycle racks are not within so-and-so.
Okay. Okay, alright, so that's fine. Alright, golf cart parking. So, so this would be for non-residential development.
I've done that, I've read you two 8 times now. still.
So this would be this is an example of what the design could look like. So you have a standard parking space, and say someone wants to put in some golf cart parking. This would be a possible design scenario with a minimum of 6 feet width for a golf cart parking spot, and the minimum, well, so this states each golf cart parking space shall be 6 feet wide and at least 11 feet deep.
So if you go back to the diagram, parking width is 9 feet, so we would have a requirement to go a couple feet beyond if it was golf carts, right? So you could have a whole string of parallel parking, and then all of a sudden have golf cart, 3 of them,
Yeah.
up and out a little bit further.
And are we taking into account most people's main mode of transportation is not golf cart, that they are also going to have a car? Or
Yes,
two?
so this would, so so I thought about this in the way of like a commercial property. So no, not residential, not someone who owns a condo and they also have a parking spot for the golf cart. I'm talking like, and this is just like, we'll discuss this first and then that second. But that's kind of what I was viewing it as, is like a new store comes in and they want to put in, they're like, hey, I would love to have golf cart parking, and we provide them direction. So it says, for the number of off-street parking spaces required by this section may be reduced by 1 space for every 3 golf cart parking spaces provided. Up to 5% of the total number of parking spaces or 12 total golf cart parking spaces. So that means if you're required to have 20 parking spaces and you don't want to put in 20 parking spaces, a lot of people get variances for parking, as we know. If they wanted to reduce that, but they also are like, well, a lot of people do golf cart, maybe we can supplement it with golf cart parking spaces because it is less money, the amount of surface that you're paving, etc. Then you could provide up to, if you had 20 spaces, you could provide 4 golf cart parking spaces, and that would be 5%. You would take 4 of your required parking spaces away. So you'd have to build 16 if you build golf cart parking spaces as well.
Beyond the 16 or as part of those 16?
Beyond the 16. So you have to build 16. You have to build 20, but you're reducing that to 16 because you're supplementing those 4 spaces with golf cart parking spaces.
And how many golf carts parking spaces?
1 space for every 3 golf cart parking spaces.
So if the developer is still going to say, I need 20 spaces anyway,
So,
and I can elect, instead of 20, I'll do 16, and the other 4 will be golf cart.
Yes.
so he would have to put in 12 golf cart parking spaces.
And 16 parking.
And,
In
and,
order to take away 4
and,
spaces.
and so if I did the math, 4 times 9 is 36, and 6 times 12 is 72. So I'm gonna have to spend more money to put in golf cart parking spaces than I would if I had my 20 automobile spaces,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Your math is correct, yeah. So,
That's not, that doesn't, maybe my math is wrong, but,
no, I agree. So,
I mean, that's not an incentive.
yeah, so,
I don't see any difference. A requirement's going to be for off-street parking of X, right? He has some allowance to go less, but ultimately I'm going to produce X because
Yeah,
some of those are
that's what I'm
going to
saying, but
be
he's
golf
gonna-
cart.
Yeah, but
It's
the
the
total
same-
square footage is bigger.
yeah.
Only because I extend 2 feet out.
For quite a ways. And plus, didn't you have something there about bumpers?
Yeah, he has to put in bumpers.
So that's
that's
what
true,
bumpers-
that is true. So,
More
in my,
paved, more
yeah.
striping?
In the staff report, I also specifically say that like, this is totally a ballpark number, and we we need to discuss what would be a good, because I just made this up off the top of my head, figuring out, hey, 12 works, et cetera, the 6 and the 18. So,
And we know people are gonna park, if there's no golf cart spaces, they're gonna park in a parking space.
Well, even if there is golf cart spaces,
They'll park in a parking space.
let's just take Bay Avenue. Okay, if you strike that off, and let's just say we strike it off as parallel parking. And we put in golf cart spaces, parallel parking, I guarantee you the car's gonna park there. A park, I mean, they would. I mean,
to me, that's,
they do it down here in front, of Patrick King's town. There's a loading zone there, and it's not marked as a loading zone, and people are parking there.
that's an enforcement issue. I don't see
I understand that,
But if I take Patrick Kane's building, this would be applicable to his building,
Yeah.
and he's providing parking in the rear,
right?
basically for his residence. And if he elects to turn a couple of those into golf cart, he's gonna turn them into golf cart, but it's not necessarily conducive to having the public access to those.
Right.
It's,
No, I hear you.
No,
I-
but
that works. Yeah, that makes sense.
there's two things to think about that. One, he may not do that because he'd have to make a bigger parking area.
that too.
And already he's gotten a variance because he didn't have enough land. And two, if he puts golf cart spaces back there in lieu of parking spaces, those cars are gonna end up where? On the street or in the big parking area behind it, which just leaves less parking for people who are coming into town.
Yeah, I don't see this helping in the public. I can see this
For residential.
residential, commercial residential.
Right, that's where I can, I don't see how it's, yeah. Well, you bring up a good point, it's got to build spaces anyway, so.
And it could be, okay, I'm going to be a developer, and one of my incentives to draw people as a marketing tool is going to have some spaces for golf carts. Right? That's as an incentive to rent.
What does Patrick have on the side of his building where the golf carts are covered? Is that
They're not
designated?
covered golf carts.
Does he have an outlet there where they can put in a charger?
I don't know, but you see them lined up, 3 or 4.
Are you talking about little tent-like structures?
No, they actually are covered golf carts
In the back of his building.
on the side,
On the side.
yeah.
I thought those were motorcycles.
Yeah, some were motorcycles.
And he
I
didn't
saw.
put that there. One of the women who lives in there put it up. I think golf cart parking does its best when it's along the road, the street. That's where it saves us parking spaces. When you're talking about residential developments, it doesn't really save you parking spaces.
And it's really up to the developer,
Whether he wants to put them in or not.
right?
It is, but it still needs to meet a certain minimum requirement of space.
That's correct.
Parking spaces.
That's correct.
So I really don't,
So I guess we're okay with this then.
what? No. I don't like the idea that you would be able to have less car parking spaces because you're putting in golf cart spaces. People don't have a golf cart instead of a car. So even though you'd say non-residential, what do you call these mixed-use buildings where it's commercial on the bottom and residential on the top?
Would be commercial. If that's bad as commercial.
So then they would have this standard where they could reduce the number of parking spaces because they're gonna have golf cart parking
But
spaces.
it's their benefit only, not to the public.
It's not to the benefit of the public at all because
Right.
where the extra space is gonna come from for the cars that they need to park. It's gonna be in the street or in the public parking, which we're already giving away. So I think if they wanna have golf cart parking, then we had to do something like allow it, but with the grass creek or something like that in addition to their requirement.
Yeah. So my goal of this was to incentivize people to build golf cart parking.
Right.
And this is new, right?
And it would maximize it to where any development would only be able to have 5% or 12 spaces, 12 golf cart spaces total, which takes up 4, that would be 4 normal spaces. So the maximum is 4 or 5%. 4 spaces that you would get removed, so the lowest would be a 20 space requirement, you could build 16. That would be like the maximum. If you got 30, you could still only take away 4, but, or 5%, so whichever is less. So if you have less than 20 spaces, 5% is going to be maybe 3 parking spaces that you'd be able to take.
What if you've got a variance for parking, so you don't even have the required number of parking spaces now? Then what happens with golf cart parking?
I think that'd be something that would need to be discussed with the board of zoning appeals as they make that decision.
You'd almost, if you accept that variance for reduced parking, you're essentially saying no golf carts are going to be there.
Yeah, because you can't supplement it if you're reducing. That makes sense.
Patrick, again, we're replanning another lot just like his, he just took to add more space for parking, for golf cart parking. He's not gonna take some of the planned spaces and substitute golf carts, he just.
But that's what this says he can
Now, if
do.
the new development, then the design would have that in
Well,
it.
let's say he was a new development, right? Because that's gonna happen along Mason, we have more land along Mason. So if he was a new development, how many spaces was he required for the first building, and then how many would he lose?
It's 1.5 spaces per condo, right?
2-bedroom or,
It doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
So 1.5. So if he had 10 condos, he has to have 15 spaces, right? And most people have at least 2 cars.
Right.
Plus the commercial though.
Yeah, well, there's no commercial allowed in this parking lot.
No, there isn't.
In that parking lot,
That's
He-
interesting.
he does, well, it says for residents only.
It does.
I mean, it says that.
Yes.
But it's a design, so in addition to the.
His off-street parking, his parking for his commercials in front,
On the street.
are on the street,
But, yeah,
600 feet.
so that had to have been approved somehow by board of
Somebody.
zoning appeals or someone. It had to have been approved by the town in order for that to happen. There's no way that it could have been otherwise, unless,
And there's, you see, there are, on the older Patrick Cannon parking lot, there are a lot of spaces in there that are not used.
oh, that's what I was thinking you were talking about.
That's what I'm
I
talking
am.
about.
But I don't know how many spaces are, I don't know how many,
Yeah.
I don't know how many units he has in that building. But it's 1.5, and that's the old thing, so
Does he have 6 on the floor?
he's got, I think that's right. So it's 18,
Yeah.
so that'd be 18 and 9, it's 27 spaces. Because he's got three
There's
floors.
3 floors, yeah.
Yeah, but the first.
Oh, right, that's right, so it's only got 2
No,
floors.
no, no. The first floor's in the back. So he has 3 floors of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So he would have 18.
Is his new building only for residences?
His new building is townhouses and the parking is in the back.
Right.
But
But he
also
doesn't have
commercial
enough
aspect.
parking for them.
But he also has a commercial aspect to his new building, is that, so can commercial?
They're not supposed to park there.
Patrons park in the back, they can't?
Oh,
That's interesting.
but you need to talk to your predecessor, he's the one that,
Well,
Or
so
the board of zoning
I'm
appeals.
pretty sure he has 37 parking spaces there, I think.
on the new building.
That he got variances to provide 37.
But anyway,
And so if he was new, we would not want him to put 37 in because we're talking about the only, certain percentage over, right?
I mean, yeah, he would have to meet that minimum still, which is more than 37, probably.
are you talking about commercial as well?
If you were to build that building now, it'd be 200 square feet of commercial, however much that relates to, and then also the residential 1.5. So, yeah, I don't know, I'm moving calculator, but it'd be more than 37, right?
Well, we basically approved the thing, it's just commercial, it's two, right?
One space per 200 gross floor. Gross floor area.
I'm kind of with Diane, where this reduces the number of vehicle parking, which forces those extra 3 or 4 cars to go find a home elsewhere.
The parking that we don't have during the season.
Well, this wouldn't be applied to existing parking lots, would it?
No, but
It just means he has to add more space to accommodate the.
No, this can reduce, this is saying he can reduce to 20 to something
If
less.
he wants to, yeah.
if you want to see it.
And
there's
why
no
is this
minimum.
new? Suppose this went in and Patrick Hand came back to us and said, I want to reduce my parking spaces to that is required.
If that's
He
what-
could.
You could, you
Yeah.
say, well, let's see, first of all, you're required to have this many spaces and you don't have them, so.
Well, that's true.
But he did, and then he did that, yeah, and then he came in and he would be able to
And
do that.
if the medical building decides to be something else, then we're running into this problem again. And is that considered new? What if the medical building just changes its use? Is that new?
We don't have anything to use, yeah.
Be a new use, but would they
You
have
wouldn't have
to
to
do this?
restripe the parking lot or anything like that. I mean, you're required.
So we could end up with less spaces there even.
They have quite a few spaces here.
Yeah.
They got that whole back, Okay. So number 2 there is, from what I'm hearing, number 2 is kind of not a very good. It's reducing the number of things, so it might not be maybe something that's if he wants to put it in, he can.
Yeah.
But he
And
still
you
has
have
to
meet the
maintain.
standards, but you don't get a reduction in parking.
Yeah, item number 3 really covers what you're saying, right? Spaces reserved for golf carts, not counted towards the maximum.
So they always have, the maximum, not the minimum. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that,
it's still
they
built.
really have a lot of spaces then.
They could, yeah. They could.
And we have got to start paying attention to drainage here, stormwater drainage. And so the bigger parking lots we have, the more we have to try to control that. Where if we had grasscrete or something of that nature, it would almost control itself.
Maybe that's a good suggestion for what we're going to do with this parking lot if they do anything.
Yeah.
All right,
Right.
so take out take out the allowance of a reduction in parking, but other than that, keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then you have to actually mark the,
That's fine.
permeable pavers shall be used for golf cart parking spaces, so just like over the maximum, you have to put in permeable pavers for parking spaces for golf carts. Which is what that was just talking about.
So you're not saying over the maximum, you're just saying for all golf cart spaces?
Yeah, so that way if you got your 20 spaces that you're building, but you also want to do golf cart spaces, those have to be, even if all golf cart parking spaces have to be grass paved or permeable pavers.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So you're not adding to the, and then the other one was just wheel numbers. All right, so I thought that those two we agrees and this one would be the challenging. This is the last one, so. This is electrical vehicle charging stations. It's permitted, it's not required unless you are building a 20,000 square foot or more building. So this is a requirement, a LEED requirement, which is like a certified LEED building. It's like a very sustainable building. You get credits, and one of the credits would be, or one of the requirements to when you're building a LEED building is to build an electric vehicle charging station if you're building over 200 square feet across the board, yeah.
Over 200,000.
200,000, or 20,000, sorry, 20,000. That'd be like a Walmart or something. I don't even know if I don't know how big meat plan it is. Does anyone know?
But when we put in our bowling alley,
But anyway, so that would require them, if this was DRP, that would require them to put in one electrical vehicle charging station. That would have to be identified by appropriate signage. It would be counted as part of the minimum, but wouldn't be counted towards the maximum, so you'd have 20 spaces required, but also add a electrical vehicle charging space. So you could have 21 spaces.
and it doesn't cost anything to plug into one of those?
It doesn't cost to plug in to one of them. It would cost the,
The town.
no, it would cost the
No.
person who owns the property. It costs the person who owns the property, and they're pretty expensive to put in.
And this is why if you go to 4, I don't see it, any new building is gonna require this, and I don't see it.
Over 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, I'm still,
Yeah. The reason that I put this in there is because, again, planning is all about the future, adjusting to the future, as we've seen in the historic district, that we don't adjust to the future well, because of the way it's done.
So let's just do a what if. So let's just say, what if Front Street decides to go ahead forth and do this and puts that super yacht center, and that's gonna be over 20,000 square feet.
Definitely.
And so they're gonna have to have at least one charging station.
4, here's where it's not for the public. That charging station is gonna be for the employees. They're gonna have a golf cart and they'll be
Well,
screwing
there
around.
it would be.
Okay, well, all I'm saying is, this
for
whole
golf
thing
carts.
is
This is for
geared
golf
to,
carts. This is for electric
It's really
cars.
technical.
Yeah, electric cars.
This isn't for golf carts, this is for electric cars.
okay,
This Teslas and stuff like that.
I see it even more far-fetched than, to me, a owner is not gonna put this in and say, oh, I'm happy to have anybody that has this. You know, if I have a car that come down from Richmond and go, oh, where do I go? Oh, yeah, let me go over to that charging station and plug in.
Yep.
No charge.
You know how when you go to the gas station, air used to be free?
Yeah.
And now they have a meter on a lot of them.
Yes,
But
cool.
you know,
So
they have
could you even put a meter
At
on
the
that?
New Kent service, at the New Kent rest area, they have electric charging stations there, you got to 4. The New Kent rest stop on 64.
And there's no charge.
Nope.
Well, the state is paying and ultimately we are paying.
Yeah, it's true.
There's no reason why you can't
Well, yeah, I
turn
mean,
it on,
Mhm.
provide electricity. There's no reason you can't put a meter on.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Well, it doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't, but we'll make that change. I like the idea of having electric vehicle charging stations, because again, we're talking about the future. But I don't see why anyone should pay for it other than the person who's using it.
Correct. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And if, for example, the Yacht Fix-It place decides they want to have it for their employees, they're required, they have for their employees, they can put a meter on it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a perk to their employees.
yeah, and in that situation too, they could request a variance, and it could be like, okay, that makes sense, that, you know, you wouldn't really put it there as opposed to more of a commercial, where people are, more of a commercial building where people are coming.
Oh.
You don't, okay, you got a shout here, so it's gonna be a straw, this is what we want. Ready?
Yes. This is supposed to be, if you're building a 20,000 square foot building, if you come to me to build that, one of your parking spaces has to be an electric vehicle charging station.
Is that one for every 20,000 square
No,
feet?
no,
Okay. So just one
no.
total?
At least one.
Okay.
One total. Which would allow, yeah, which would mean we have one in the town at least.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you hit the word meter, I can accept that, meter.
Maybe, yeah. I'll add that.
Yeah.
That's all I have for Oh, drive-through establishment and restaurant drive-through. There's two definitions that fell to the wayside that we've already talked about, restaurants, and drive-through establishments, but I definitely want to have a definition.
Well, now, unfortunately, I have a problem with this, so if we thought we were gonna not have a discussion.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss it.
I mean, we can discuss it next time, we'll discuss it now.
What's wrong with this one?
Restaurant drive-through.
It's not, doesn't say restaurant.
The second one says
Well,
restaurant.
down at the bottom.
drive-through restaurant.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
like,
Any eating establishment of the primary activity is oriented toward use by the motoring public by providing carry-out, pickup, and other related services. So you put in a McDonald's, would you say the primary activity
oh,
is drive-through?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this could be like, it wouldn't pertain to like Coastal Bakery where you're running in to get a cake, or they bring your cake out to you.
No, but that's not a drive-through. To me, a drive-through is you drive up to a window. So why do we have to say the primary activity? Why don't we say if you have a drive-through on your restaurant, then it's called a drive-through restaurant.
Yeah.
Rayfields, would Rayfields fall under this?
But Rayfield's falls under the one above, where it says,
It'd be a drive-through establishment.
Yeah.
it's a drive-through
It's a
establishment.
restaurant, okay?
They don't do food out of their drive-through.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying, that's a case where I have a restaurant and I have a drive-through. Does it apply?
But that would be the top one, right? Drive-through establishment. And that doesn't say what its primary activity, so that's good.
Why do we even have, why can't the one on the top be for everything?
Because we specify restaurant.
I know you do, but why?
Well, I mean, in the,
In the text portion of the ordinance, the word restaurant appears.
yeah. So we have restaurant.
Like that root shop is gonna be a restaurant?
What?
Drive-through that root?
Well, yeah, at the park, they probably have that.
In Vegas, you can drive through
The
there.
golf cart, drive-through.
Drive-through, yeah.
Right, Mary?
You know, I kind of agree with Bill, but why can't we just have a definition that will include it all?
So, okay. Drive-through establishment. So just get rid of restaurant then. Because it would-
Unless it affects so many other things
I don't
that
think
it
it would.
becomes
Or
necessary.
add it to, drive-through establishment or restaurant. And or restaurant.
Establishment/restaurant, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
That
one
would
would be
work.
good.
So we got like 4 more vehicles in the parking or almost there or what?
This is a short meeting tonight, right?
This is
No,
just.
we're gonna take a few minutes.
So the next one?
I don't even have it with me. It's the next section. We don't have it.
So you're saying you did A through F, what are you looking for, G? G through O, okay?
And the next.
All right. There's a lot of closeouts there, which is like.
Is it possible to get, for the next meeting, a copy of this with all the changes in it?
Definitely.
Because mine is
Yeah.
getting confused.
Okay, so this takes, the next meeting, we'll try to go through
The rest of
balance, yeah.
All right, is that it on that? Can we move on here? Okay, any other new business? Other business? Okay, we all have this is a Historic District Review Board. You got a packet here. Bottom line is, text amendments is going to go from 5 to 7 members to the Historic District Review Board, and one of those members has to be a town council member, and both the town council have approved this, and the Historic District Review Board has approved this. You've been told about this, and so what we need to do is we need to set August 6th for the public hearing.
Is there something missing here?
On what?
Why does it say that we're going to 7 citizens, and then the next sentence says all former members are eligible to be alternates? That's the first time the word alternate comes up in that section.
No, this has always been there. He just took the current section 8.7, and he crossed off the 5, put 7, and he crossed off the 3, put 4, and he inserted it, and 1 member must be from the town council. Everything else in that section is per the current section 8.7.
All right, the bylaws need to be changed accordingly to, because I think the bylaws speak to
Right.
the exact same verbiage.
Right.
It's duplicated.
Is that a adoption? By the council? Or is that just?
No,
No, I think it's an ordinance.
the bylaws, every board, or the commission has set bylaws, all right? They're kind of almost all the same, but they'll have to be adjusted. And the town staff does
Yeah, that's
that,
what.
in
And the.
consonance with the board.
Yeah, but it's not like an adoption by town council?
No,
Like
no,
an ordinance.
no,
Yeah.
Administrative correction.
yeah. Any discussion on this?
Did you talk about the next one, on page?
Oh, yeah, the next one, on the next one, it's also that there's a text amendment for the Historic District Review Board guidelines to also be adopted by the town council, and that would also be at a public hearing on the 6th. Right now, the last set of guidelines that was done, great job, that was done by Joe Farrow, had no oversight by town council. They did it, they adopted it, and that was it. So, but all the other guidelines from everybody else have, I mean, the comp plan is our guidelines, so has, the wetlands board just finished theirs, the town council, so, you know, so that's what that says. So that would have to go to the public hearing too.
Okay, I propose that we have an August 6th public meeting on these presented changes for Historic District Review Board.
Section 8.7 and section 8.22.8.20.
Correct.
A second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed?
Now, just for sake of clarity, we have other process changes that we're going to be bringing to the board for Historic District Review
But
Board.
we're just focused on this right now.
Excuse me?
We're just focused on this right now.
Correct. That's correct. It's
Just the
sentence
general
that
information.
War is coming.
Okay. All right. Any other business? Announcements?
Just quickly looking ahead to September, we've typically met the day after Labor Day, and I was just, is that going to be the plan this year? Because Labor Day, on the 2nd or something, we would just do that there. I think, I have a potential conflict, but I think it's fixable, so.
I think we'll
As
have-
soon as now, it's good,
I think
we'll
we'll-
probably have the regular meeting on the first Tuesday of September, day after Labor Day. Okay, okay.
And just as an FYI, once we get started on the comp plan, just like the last one, we used several times, more than several, we used our alternate time, because we had to meet twice in a month. It's just the way it was, so. Okay, so I hope to see everybody here on the 25th. I have some work to do to get out to you and folks on that work.
Just pointed to earlier too, you know, one of the boards is Main Street, right? And that
Right.
still has town funding?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
They're town funding, but not in town board.
yeah.
right,
Not a-
right, but they're, you know.
They can have.
They will be a big player, they will be a big player, okay? All right,
Okay.
okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?